The following program is to provide entertainment and information. It is not considered to be any legal or investment advice. Good morning, appraisers. Let's talk some real estate. You're listening to the voice of Appraisal, the #1 appraisal podcast in America that brings you the latest news and information from the front lines of the real estate market. Anything from market conditions, appraisal regulations, cryptocurrencies, AVM news, folks. If you have a question, we have all of your answers. We are the one-stop source for all of your real estate appraisal needs. If you want to be in the know, you have definitely tuned in to the right show. I'm your host, Phil Crawford. Happy to have all of you here with us today. Kevin, we got two shows this week. We got two this week.
Yeah, I was going to say, since we did our first show
a
couple days ago,
and
we're all fired up that, are you ready to knock this one out of the park?
Let me tell you something right now, Kevin. We're going to go back. Remember the last show that we talked about? We talked about the AVMs. I was really shocked on how many people in the National Association of Realtors in the banking system are going back to the AVM theory again, to say this is a product that's viable and we can use it here. I have seen a lot of AVMs. I'm going to be honest with you. I've seen a lot. There's one that I thought was pretty decent, but this AVM, it was a plane, or it was like a car driven by the appraiser. So it's sort of like an appraiser-driven AVM that would drive the data that the AVM would put in it. It wasn't anything that was like, hocus-pocus crap that they're dealing with today. It was a very nice data-driven AVM. That's probably the only one that I've seen that I would put any credibility to at this particular point in time. A lot of people out there are pushing for the AVM product. And the reason why is with the push of a button, you can get back a value. And that's what they're looking for. That overall is the goal of the fintech world, is just to be able to, boom, get that number back. You're good to go. We've got pictures. Like, for instance, Zillow just came out and said we've got a way of coming up with quality and condition adjustments based upon all the photographic evidence that we have out there on the blogosphere, considering the fact that nobody in this world has any damn privacy whatsoever. It is absolutely unbelievable. So now they're out there saying, hey, we can just look at these photographs and everything will be fine because we can come up with quality. Those photographs could be a year old, 2 years old. Look, I don't need to get into this. This is just insanity. But these are the pitching points that a lot of the AVM technology firms are going to use. Yes, Kevin?
I was just thinking, light bulb went off in my head.
Yes.
You're talking about the decent photographs on these houses and that.
Yeah.
What's to keep people from using, what is that, Street View on Google?
Yeah, that's what they do sometimes. Use Street View. They're using an old MLS photo. How many times have you seen a stage photo on MLS that the house just looks beautiful, but then a year later you walk into it and you're like, what the hell happened here? I mean, no. Are you going to base risk assessment again in this country on Sex Panther AVMs? Sex Panther AVMs, Kevin. That's what they are. Do you remember the movie Anchorman, where Brian Fantana and Ron Burgundy, and they're in there and they're talking about putting on their cologne, the Sex Panther cologne, because they're all trying to hit on the lady, right? And Fantana is basically trying to sell to Burgundy how good the Sex Panther cologne is. It's sort of the same way that I can envision some of these AVM guys out there trying to sell their product to a bank. Here, let's listen to the Sex Panther.
It's called Sex Panther by ODI.
Yeah.
It's illegal in 9 countries.
That's the AVM.
Yep.
That's the AVM.
It's made with bits of real panther. So you know it's good.
It's quite pungent.
Oh, yeah.
Bits of real data.
It's a formidable scent.
Smells bad. No,
Stings the nostrils. In a good way.
Yeah.
Brian, I'm going to be honest with you. That smells like pure gasoline.
They've done studies, 60% of the time it works every time.
That doesn't make sense.
60% of the time. Really, honestly, that is like the selling point. That's the pitch that an AVM supplier would be able to give to a bank or maybe the NRA. It works 60% of the time. I mean, actually, the real numbers are probably 90% of the time. 90% of the time, it's 10% off. Those are terrible numbers. Why would you even use that? Why would you even come up with that as a sales pitch? That's the Sex Panther AVM. Oh, it's the Sex Panther AVM, Kevin. Go ahead. Yeah, that's going to go ahead and support the American banking system. Oh, yeah, that's going to go ahead and help us all out in the future. Let's go ahead and base a $5 trillion portfolio on a Sex Panther AVM. There you go. That's perfect. Perfect. Let's go ahead and base all that.
60% of the time it works.
Every time.
What got
Kevin,
me is
yes.
the little bit whether we just played, he said it smells like gasoline.
That's right.
Gasoline Put a match to it.
Boom,
What happens?
boom. Yeah, exactly right. Some of these AVMs out there smell like liquid bottled ass, and they're pitching this stuff as something that's part of modernization. As part of oh yeah, that's just modernization right there. Sex Panther AVMs. 90% of the time, it's within 10% of value. Man, those are dangerous, dangerous numbers. And you're going to base your risk assessment on that? Look at where we are right now. We're talking about a 10-year treasury under 2%, or possibly, I don't know where it's at today, but it was under 2%. Mortgage rates are falling through the floor. You've got more and more people borrowing money. Because the mortgage rates are so low, the asset prices are being propped up. I think they're being propped up heavily into it, possibly another bubble again. You've got the millennial generation having absolutely no money whatsoever to buy property because they're too indebted. They've got too much student loan debt. They have too much debt, period. They don't have enough wage inflation. We're capping out at affordability. And you're going to come in and say, yes, but the best thing we can do right now is to come up with more and more AVMs and start to take them even more and more seriously?
60% of the time, it works every time.
Every time. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. It sounds just like his pitch from the Sex Panther cologne. It is. It is really ridiculous. And that's why we're in such a dangerous position right now. I have got an article here. This is a blogger. He only does like 2 or 3 blogs a year. He's a really fascinating guy. And he's out in New York City. His name is Todd Schneider. ToddSchneider.com. Actually, it's Todd W. Schneider.com. And he's kind of cool, actually. He's a mathematician. So he figures out traffic accidents in New York and how they correlate as far as the numbers are concerned, things like that. But he did a phenomenal blog back in 2015 about Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac's default rate during the crash and the subprime mortgage market and all this stuff, okay? And you really start to take a look at this, and you can see how leveraged this whole thing is, especially now that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are in conservatorship with the federal government, and it is unbelievable. He talks about the default rate from Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac on 30-year fixed mortgages originated from 2003 to 2007. And what he's showing here, and Kevin, this is amazing when you take a look at this chart. In 2008, the default rate was at 2%. 2009, the default rate went to 3%, and then it went above 4% right about the middle of 2009. It topped out at 6.7% somewhere around 2010. Now, just remember, in 2008, that shocked the entire world at 2% on a default rate. That's absolutely unbelievable. So Mr. Schneider also goes into the geographic performance, who had more defaults in what areas of the country and who didn't. Of course, California was a big one. Florida was a big one. Nevada was a big one back in those days. But remember, so there's some other things I want to point out too, and that has to do with the fact that he models the mortgage default rates, and he brings it down to the default rates by FICO score, and he also breaks it down by the default rates by the current LTV, the current loan to value. Look at these numbers. It's absolutely unbelievable. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac 30-year fixed mortgages observed from 2009 to 2011. Now, this is after the crash, right? This is when they're in conservatorship right here. People that had a 550 FICO score were showing a default rate of 15, almost 16%, Kevin.
Jeez.
600 FICO score was about the same. 650 dropped to 12%. 700 dropped to 8%. 750 at 4%, and 800 was below 2%. Now, those are default rates by the FICO score. So obviously, the lower the FICO is, the greater the risk of default. However, that being said, 15% default rates, that's massive.
Yes.
That's huge. Now, are they starting to loosen standards over at Freddie and Fannie? Are they starting to bring down FICO score standards? Yes, they are. That's starting to freak me out a little bit. But this is the big one. This is the one that I don't think a lot of people in the valuation space really do truly appreciate. You have to appreciate these numbers, okay? This is the annualized default rate by the current LTV. That's the loan to value. And this was observed between 2009 and 2011. These were the bad days. These were the days where we were in foreclosure messes and everything else. If your loan to value was under 50%, your default rate was about 1, maybe 2%. If your loan to value got up to about 75%, that means you got 25% equity. Your default rate over at Fannie and Freddie was about at 5%. So now you still got 25% equity, but your default rate's of 5%. These are during the bad times. You don't have a job. You maybe got laid off. That's the issue. But look what happens to your default rate when you get up to 100%. A default rate on a 100% LTV during those bad times was roughly about 8 to 9%, given this chart right here. Let's go to 125 LTV. Now you're underwater. And that happened very quickly from 2006.
Yes.
Well, if you bought in 5, 6, and 7, and you crashed in 8, which was the fourth quarter of 2007 was credit crunch, fourth quarter of 8 was the crash. If you were at 125% LTV, your default rate was 15%. 15%. 150% LTV, which did happen in California, Nevada, and Florida, and places like that. 150%, your default rate was close to 20%.
20%.
20%. Anything over 150 LTV, default rates rolling in at about 22%, 23%. So it's a perception. What ends up happening is people look at this and say to themselves, look, I don't want to put any more money in a house that I'm never going to get paid off, that I'm never going to show anything on. It is a matter of emotion. It really is. People just say, screw it. I don't want to deal with this house anymore. That is the number one issue that we're dealing with today. If an appraiser gets involved in a sales transaction and there's a meeting of the minds and that purchase price is $250,000 or $350,000 or $400,000, but the market value is less. If the individual decides, you know what, I don't care, I still want to buy it, I'll come out of pocket, whatever, that's on them. That's their decision. But let's say, for instance, the market value is $20,000 less than the sales price. Somebody renegotiates that down 20% or maybe meets them in the middle, maybe $10,000 down or $20,000, whatever it is. You could be saving somebody the hardship of going into a negative LTV position if there is a correction in the marketplace. And right now, what we see, given current economic conditions with low interest rates and with the asset prices being pumped up and pushed up and lower FICO scores being allowed to take place and higher percentages of debt-to-income ratios being allowed on these mortgages, what we're seeing is a possibility of these values going down. And if we're there to be that buffer, if we're there to say, look, you know what? The market value is not what this sales contract price is. You could be saving somebody a heck of a lot of despair in the future when that value goes down, where we're right back to where we were before. We're just thinking that values do nothing but go up in this country. And now we're going back to this whole concept of these Sex Panther AVMs. Think about those numbers now. Do you see how fragile that is? From 100% LTV at 8% default rate to 125% jumping to 15% default rate. And you sit there as an AVM provider and say that 90% of our products are 10% off? Those are terrible, terrible numbers. And that's what's being pushed out there as appraiser and as valuation modernization. And it's not going to work. And it's going to put a lot of people in a lot of problems. Look, the bottom line is this. Fannie and Freddie have a $5 trillion loan portfolio. There's not enough money on the face of the planet that has ever been created to even carry a capital reserve on it. You can't even carry reserves on it. You can't even do a 5% reserve on that much money. And you're going down this path. HR 299 passed. It's going to make major changes in the Veterans Administration. It could have a major impact. And for those of you out there that do VA work, and I know a lot of you enjoy doing VA work, VA has always been considered to be the gold standard of the appraisal process under valuation risk assessments. It's always been considered to be the gold standard. Well, if you take away the gold standard on the VA side, well, it's going to be very simple as taking the dollar off the gold standard. It's going to go fiat and usually implodes over a certain point in time. There's all these big changes out there. I think right now, if you're listening to me and if you're a mover and you're a shaker and you're a policymaker, put the brakes on it. Stop. Stop and stop right now. The Fed is getting more dovish. I can't believe it the other day. The economic numbers didn't look good. The Fed may become more dovish and the stock market jumps 200 points. It's all based on crack. It's on that credit crack brought in from the Federal Reserve.
We're starting credit crack again.
Credit crack all over again. When bad news comes in, that means the Fed's going to go ahead and inject some cocaine into the system, and that way the stock market jumps 200 points. That's not the way it's supposed to work, folks. That's not the way it's supposed to work. Yet at the same time, you're seeing a rush to safety with gold, with silver, and with Bitcoin. So things are not going that well. If you're a mover and shaker in the housing market, this is not the time to be introducing this kind of modernization. If you want modernization, it's very simple. We have technology. We have companies out there that are developing technology for an appraiser to do their job quicker, more efficiently. We've got a new generation of appraisers coming in that are younger, that have more energy. I've got one. I've got a young appraiser that works for me. She's 27. She has a lot of energy. Turnaround times will increase. You got parasitical third-party companies out there that are driving down appraisal fees throughout the country. They're taking too much of a cut. I was talking to my father-in-law. My father-in-law is a surgeon, and we were driving in Los Angeles this last week, and we were talking about the cost of health care. I'm a survivor, so the cost of health care on my side is very, very high. Well, the bottom line is the cost of health care is going up and up and up in the country, but the doctors aren't getting paid anymore. As a matter of fact, the doctors are getting paid less and are making less than what they made years ago. So we're not the only profession that this is occurring in, because you have too many damn middlemen. You have too many parasitical companies out there sucking too much from us.
What's that they always say? Too many cooks in the kitchen.
Too many fingers in a cookie jar. And that's what it is. So you're starting to see a breakdown. The appraisal management company model. I'd like to get a hold of Representative Lukemeyer. Just say, where do you live? I'll get an appraiser there for you. Give me 1 year, I can get an appraiser there. No problem at all. But seriously, you're looking at a situation now where that business model is a failure. It won't work. It's too top heavy. We need to get rid of it. And we need to go more to the portal side of things. And we just need to go to direct lender. You can be Dodd-Frank compliant if you go to direct lender. And I'm going to be honest with you, and I know this will probably never happen, but if we take Fannie Mae and we take Freddie Mac and we break them apart into 10,000 different small community banks that are well capitalized, that's the best way to do it. Take underwriting back to a local position again. That's the best way to do it. It worked perfectly before. Speaking of VA, do you remember the old VA fee panels where you had your VA representative in that area? Come on, guys. Come on. We are pushing things too fast. We are pushing things out of control. We're throwing out there a lot of data pollution. We've got a lot of fintech making a lot of promises, and they're going to be sounding, and their pitches are going to be sounded just like the Sex Panther in the great movie Anchorman. There it is, Kevin. There it is. Next time anybody brings up an AVM, you go ahead and just remember the Sex Panther AVM. 60% of the time, it's right every time. 90% of the time, it's 10% off. We don't know what the we're looking at. And that is what an AVM is all about, ladies and gentlemen. If you want to know what's going on with your loan portfolio, you need to call up a real estate appraiser and make sure that they are there to back you up. That's how it works, folks. That's how it works.
That doesn't make sense.
Doesn't make sense. Kevin, this is the world that we're living in. But the good news is that Jonathan is out there, Lori's out there, Pat's out there. People are out there now getting the message out to the banks, to the movers and shakers, to the policymakers to say, look, guys, hold off. Let's all calm down. Let's not jump on this too quickly, and let's really look at the big picture here. In 2008, the country nearly died. It nearly died. And what happened in 2008? A currency failed. Satoshi Nakamoto came in. The Genesis block of Bitcoin was started. A fundamental, monumental shift took place in this country and is starting to affect us all right now. You want to go down this path again? Then what monumental shift will take place in the future? What are you doing? Do you think you got demographics on your side? Do you think you got millennials? Do you think you got Gen Zers that are going to come in and fill up this space? You're out of your flipping mind because they're broke. They have no money. They have no jobs. They have no ability to go out there and buy anything because they have no wage inflation. They're broke. Do not rely upon that next generation to drive your future economic numbers. You've got to understand that. Stay with what we've got. Stay with the three-legged stool of the mortgage process. Understand the credit, understand the income, understand the collateral. A collateral analysis done by a real estate appraiser, inspected by a real estate appraiser, or a member of that appraiser's staff, a trainee. That's what needs to happen, folks. That's the message that needs to get out there. We're going to push it through all of our good friends. We're going to push it through findmyappraiser.com. We're going to push it through all of our continuing education courses that are coming up. Folks, this is a monumental shift. This is a game changer, and we're going to make it happen. The appraisal profession is changing. I've been going at it for 5 years. Lori's been going at it for 10 years. Pat's been going at it since, I don't know, birth, right? People have been going at it for a very, very long time. We're starting to make changes. We've got to get that unified voice, okay? Act professional. Be professional. If you are a Jerry Springer show, listen to my podcast. We'll have some fun here. We'll have a good time. But don't take that Jerry Springer out into the real world. We have no time for you. We have no time for your drama and your Jerry Springer BS. If you're a Jerry Springer show appraiser out there, then you're just as nasty and as stinky as a Sex Panther. And that's what I'm talking about, Kevin. It's now time to take this profession to a whole new level, and we're doing it. Also, thank you very much to Becky Jones out of New York. She was at NAR as well. She's driving it. She's making things happen. There's a lot of people that I don't mention on this show, and if I don't bring you up, I do apologize. I mean, no offense by it whatsoever. I know who you are, and I know what you're doing. Let's continue to move this thing forward as time goes on, okay? Folks, if you need anything, info@voiceofappraisal.com, info@voiceofappraisal.com, or info@findmyappraiser.com. We're always there to help you out. Kevin's always there. Lori's always there. I'm always there to help you out. New shows are on the way. New advertisement through FMA, through a different additional podcasts are on the way. All these things are taking place. Positive things are going on. Let's continue on as we drive through 2019. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of our show for this week. And as always, I would like to thank you for listening. As we journey through the mysteries and complexities that are, in fact, the real estate appraisal profession, I would like to thank my producer, Kevin Kenny, for being here for his thoughtful insight and knowledge. God willing, we'll be back here very soon, continuing to report from the front lines of the real estate market. In the meantime, you kiss your spouse, you hug your children, enjoy your day. Be safe in the field. You've been listening to Phil Crawford on Voice of Appraisal. We'll talk very soon. Sex Panther AVMs, Kevin. That's what it's all about, baby. Right there.